As a competitive jiu-jitsu athlete, I have always been curious about the physiological changes in my body the moments right before I step on the mats for competition. My heart beats so fast, my palms are sweating. I get these moments of intense fight or flight, and sometimes it feels like time just completely slows down. More importantly, why is this happening? And is there anything we can do to manage or minimize these symptoms in the moments before competition so that we can perform at our best? The research I conducted was to answer this very question. The reference article is Heart Rate Variability, Salivary Cortisol, and Competitive State Anxiety Responses During Pre-Competition and Pre-Training Moments, authored by Renato Souza from the Federal Institute of Education, Science, and Technology of South Minas Gerais, Brazil. This question is of great interest to researchers because the behavioral processes of stress and anxiety can greatly influence an athlete's performance on game day. Furthermore, properly implementing management tools is equally important in order to properly manage these symptoms to improve performance. The study analyzed 3 different activities: canoeing, jiu-jitsu, and long distance running. In order to assess the participants' pre and post anxiety stressors, the competitive state anxiety inventory was provided to the participants before and after competition. The CSA is a survey that monitors an athlete's cognitive and somatic anxiety as well as their self-confidence. Questions like I feel nervous or I have self-doubt are rated on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being I don't feel this at all and 4 being very much so. After carefully analyzing the results of this study, it was in fact determined that somatic anxiety is increased in the moments before competition. To understand these findings, we should first look to see what exactly this means. According to the research, it is important to highlight the difference in sympathetic action, as it has been demonstrated that changes in emotional state are associated with changes in the parasympathetic and sympathetic state. On page 534 and 535 of the Human Anatomy and Physiology textbook, we can look at the differences between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and determine how to activate the appropriate ones so that we can perform at our best during competition. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for that fight or flight response. And this response is very typical when you're faced with danger or a life-threatening situation. Symptoms include pounding heart, deep breathing, and the sweats, which explains why before competition we feel those symptoms, because we are actually experiencing the fight or flight response, which is being caused by the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is actually the opposite. It's known as the resting state. It helps us return our heart rate and blood pressure to normal. It's also important to note that the vagus nerve makes up 90% of the parasympathetic nervous system. So if we can learn how to activate the vagus nerve, then we are in fact activating the parasympathetic nervous system. A healthy and stimulated vagus nerve also allows for higher cognitive thinking and better problem solving. Stimulating the vagus nerve in order to activate the parasympathetic nervous system is one of the key ways we can reduce the fight or flight response. And the best way to do this is by performing deep, slow belly breaths, which activates and vibrates the vagus nerve. George Brito, a well-renowned MMA fighter and one of the best grapplers in Canada, has been competing for 29 years. I had the pleasure of sitting down with him to discuss the different roles that breathing can have on a fighter before competition. He recalls that he has felt a wide range of symptoms prior to competition, and he has over the years implemented methods to manage these symptoms.
Because the breathing would flow oxygen to my brain, and because my brain is oxygenated, I can think better. It's that you go and you have a match, and then you stop like sometimes 10, 20 minutes to another match, and this back and forth is so hard. That's why I was always studying the idea of learning how to do this better, and then I found out the breathing. So the breathing techniques are very helpful.
Deep breath work was the #1 management tool that he uses in order to activate that vagus nerve and allow even just more oxygen to your brain and to your body. As a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a practitioner in Gymnastica Natural, he is well versed in a wide array of belly breathing, as well as breath holding patterns that allow him to get more oxygen into his body and to help him perform his best before competition. These techniques allow him to calm his mind, calm his nervous system, and really get his head focused in the game.
That's why I studied that so much, that Gymnastica Natural. So I since I have good role models, and I always like we always like we grill around, like listen what Hicks and Gracie say, and that's one of the things that we always feel magic, it's like breathing. And
Yeah.
the first time I had a chance to compete, to train with him, I was purple belt, and then we roll, and then I was trying hard, and he stopped me, and he's like, "You don't know how to breathe." And the moment you learn how to breathe, your jiu-jitsu is gonna get so much better. Since that day, I was about 20 years old, right? I started to study, and that was a big breakthrough for me, because I was like, wow, I wait so much to learn that, and it's still using today in several moments of my life, like.
In the book Breathe, A Life in Flow from Hicks and Gracie, Gracie explains that breathing is the #1 thing you can learn in order to control your life and control your performance. A person breathing only uses 50% of the lungs capacity, which means if you can learn to increase the amount of oxygen going into your lungs, you can increase the amount of oxygen being flowed through to your whole body and to your mind. Gracie states that everything he has learned today was at least partially a result of breathing. His best performance, his emotional control, and ability to endure, breathing gave him all of this. At the end of the day, whether you're a professional athlete or somebody who's literally just trying to find a state of calmness in their life, deep breathing is one of the best things you can do for your body and for your mind. It stimulates the vagus nerve, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and increases your mind-body connection. So the next time you're preparing for that upcoming tournament and you feel yourself getting overwhelmed with that pre-competitive state of anxiety, remember, just breathe.